Hello, hello, hello. We are back with another amazing episode of the Jane Wareham podcast. And you know what's up? I'm always bringing in incredible guests. And I have Crystal Samuels here, and she is going to be talking about blessing in the burnout. This is what we're going to dive into today. We all have been burnt out. Maybe you're burnt out right now. And, we're really hoping by the end of this that maybe we can help one of you, maybe you not feel as burnt out and avoid what Crystal went through. And I have gone through this too. So, Crystal, thank you for being here.
I am so honored to be here, Jane. And I know that this podcast today is just going to, if it touches one person, that's all that it matters because we want to be able to support each other in this community. There's so many ways that we can share. And the more we share, the more we help. So at one point, I was ashamed to share the story. And now I just want to share it with the whole world. So thank you
Oh,
for
I
having me.
love this. And you know what? That's the thing. I am all about normalizing the challenges that we face, normalizing all the shit that happens in our life that makes it so hard to feel free, to feel happy, to feel insert whatever adjective you want to feel. Everything gets in the way. And so, listeners, if this is your first time listening to the Jane Warren podcast, we are so grateful that you're here. You're taking time out of your, I'm sure, very busy and eventful schedule to listen to this. And this is going to better your mind, which inevitably is going to better your life. And if you're returning, we love you. So thank you for listening. All right, Crystal, let's dive into this. Blessing in the burnout. Why
Yeah.
don't you share? You can give a little more about you and about your journey. Let's get into it.
Okay, so long story short, I have been a career woman for like 20 years straight, where all I had to do was focus on my career. So I, at the end of the day, really identify myself with my career and what I did, and very proud of it, and still very proud of it. There's no doubt about it. Um, I would say when life had a major transition, as in I became a mother, which was amazing. I loved every moment of it and still love every moment of it. When it was time to go back to work, I was going at very high speeds, that's for sure. And I must admit, when I first went back to work, I had a little bit of a rocky space with who I was initially reporting to. And then I went to another reporting relationship that became even rockier. And I think the biggest thing is that where you are situated in a workplace, if you happen to be at work or on your entrepreneurial journey, wherever it may be, I think the key thing that I want to start with and then I'll end with is that the only validation that you need is from within you. Okay. Let's stick a pin in
Mm-hmm.
that and let's keep the story rolling. So, what occurred is that workplace trying to overprove, looking for validation from external sources, parenting my daughter up really late at night. Literally, I would go to work full days, pick her up, feed her, put her to bed, and go back to work until 2 o'clock in the morning and do it all over again. And all over again, thinking that if I worked harder, they'll see the work I'm doing, they'll see my worth. Mm.
I
And
literally just shared a post today on this about wearing it as a badge of honor
yep,
because I used to do the exact same thing. So I'm following.
yeah,
I feel you. I feel this.
harder and longer, and they'll see all the hard work that I'm putting in, and then the relationship will get better and the job will get better and all that stuff, and at home will get better, everything will get better, just I just have to put in the time. And what I realized is I remember at sometimes just getting up from my desk at 11 p.m., walking in my living room and saying, this is not normal, I'm not feeling right, this is not normal, this can't be normal. And then I would go back to work. And I
Yeah.
remember I would,
You're like, well, I got to do it. Got to get the work
yeah,
done.
just, yes. And I would do that for weeks upon weeks upon weeks until I went to the doctor and I told her what was happening. And I totally broke down. And she's like, I've never seen you like this before. You need to take time off of work. And I'm like, me? Me that's supposed to have everything together? Me that
Every
everyone
workaholic's nightmare.
everybody comes to, everybody, I have everything together. Crystal's the one that has everything together. What would I tell people? What do you mean I'm off work?
And you're like, why exactly? They're like,
Yeah. And she's like, I'm going to give you a note. I need you to submit it and I'll call you. And she's turned to me and she goes, are you going to submit it? And I said to her, I don't know.
mm,
And she goes, I'm going to call you on Friday. And I was really honestly, Jane, I was not going to submit the note because I'm like, the shame, the embarrassment.
mm,
Like, no, I'm supposed to have everything together. What is people going to think in the work? What's people going to think outside of the work? What am I going to do? And through lots of loving friends, they help me get to the place where it's like, this is not a bad thing. This is a great thing. You need to take the time off. It's only for,
mhm.
and I
Actually,
submit.
like leading by example too, I can totally see the shame in that and thinking, what are people going to think? Like, oh, now I can't handle all this. Like, but
Yeah,
in reality, it's like you're leading by example.
yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. And I submitted the note and I took time off. And Jane, it was 4 weeks that turned into 4 months. That's how numb, exhausted physically and mentally I was. Um, Low energy, like is experiencing depression. And
Hmm.
that's where I was. Like I didn't realize that I got to the place of even numbness. When they think about burnout is measured in various scales. Some people have a 5 point scale, some people have a 12-point scale. And if you look at the 12-point scale, I was like at 11, 12. I was there. And it took that for me to regain myself, refine myself again. And there were so much blessings that came in that time off. That's why I refer to it as the blessing and the burnout, because I realized where I needed my validation from me,
Hmm. Hmm.
nobody else. And it took therapy. It took me going deeper into my meditation practice. It took me connecting back with my God. It took community. That's where I met Jane, actually. It took community. It took all of these very key ingredients and exercise for me to get back into the place of me and feeling me again, because I was walking around like in an empty vessel. So
Mm.
that's like the Coles Note version, but we can go a little deeper on each component, from the validation to the worthiness to, finding self again.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And I'm sure this is hitting for some of our listeners. And I actually witnessed my older sister go through the same thing. And it was back around the time when I started my business, like it was around 2020. It was like pre-COVID, around like pre-COVID time. And I remember she had experienced some health issues and she ended up going to the doctor and it was the same thing. They were like, I've never seen this happen before in person. Like they're like, I know about this, but I've never actually seen it. And this is from acute stress. Like this is from excessive amounts of stress. And whatever's happening in your life right now, you need to press pause. And it was her work. And she worked in the fashion industry. She worked in, I mean, anyone can get stressed in any industry. And yeah, it was wild. And it's so interesting because same thing, like 4 weeks turned into like a year. Like she had realized, like it's year after year, like 11 years in this industry had just beaten her down. And she just was totally captured by her employer and like just acting like a complete zombie, like literally a zombie walking through life, not feeling anything. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating to observe because at first it was just like, yeah, they told me to take a couple of weeks off. And then it all starts to unravel and I watched it all and she had literally I think in the end she took a year and a half because she also did a ton of soul searching to figure out what it is then she wanted, like what was no longer serving her. She didn't go back to that employer. Like she actually ended up going somewhere else.
Yes, yeah.
And yeah, like it's okay. So let's dive into some of this. So let's dive into this validation because I think this is really, really key. I'm someone that did the exact same thing. I sought out, I tried to prove myself. I thrived on the validation and I would pretty much do anything to get it. So let's talk about that and how this impacted you.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting because society has set us up into like a performance measurement world. That's just
Mm-hmm.
how it is. You know, if we look at your workplace, do year-end reviews and how did you do? If you even look at the things and the materialistic things that people have, and it's sort of like a measurement system. And so because our society is into a measurement system, naturally as people that want to demonstrate success, that's the first thing we go. What can we out from an outward perspective measure our successes on? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where it started in the workplace environment. Even if you think about, if you even go back before you even are in a working age, where do you sometimes children learn to get, how do they get validation?
Great.
Right. And so it's so interesting because I thrived very well on working hard and working longer in the earlier part of my career. And there was times when I think back in retrospect, I was burnt out. I was
Mm-hmm.
burnt out, but I had the mechanisms to like kind of go in and then come back. Not that I should have probably not come back, but I was single for many years, no children for many years. So I had the ability to kind of recoup physically, um, or even navigate things a little uh with less tension or resistance because there is there's less things controlling, or I'm letting less things control my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole validation piece is very key when we think about it. Yes, you're supposed to take feedback, but the feedback doesn't make or break you. I think that's important for people
Mm-hmm.
to understand. We have to live in this performance kind of world, this, you know, you're in performance reviews or whatever world you live in. But or revenue, maybe revenue is your performance or profit, but it doesn't make or break you. They're just indicators of how you may want to pivot or change things. But when it comes to your inherent worth and where you need validation from, and you know, and you're honest with yourself, it all comes from internal. Like, I can't express that. How, when you make that mind shift, right, Jane?
Mm-hmm.
How, and you understand that it's not based on other people, it's based on you, and you take feedback and you make improvements, you reject whatever you want to do. That is where all the validation comes from. And so just really think about, you know, for our list or your listeners, where are you looking for your validation from? Is it from a loved one? Is it from a partner? Is it from your boss? Or are you really reflecting internally and seeing, does this resonate with me? Is this what I
Mm-hmm.
want? Yeah. Is this how I feel, how I truly feel? So, you know, as we talk about those things, and again, it can go even before work, it could go into childhood, and you can think about where you get your validation from and how it worked as a child, because that can, people pleasing can be something that really percolates into the adult ages.
Oh
And
yeah.
oh yeah, it can be a big thing. And so be careful of the people pleasing, because people pleasing means that you're looking for validation outside.
How, so you being someone that, you know, really thrived off of that, as you started to transition, find more validation from within, like, how did you move through that? How did you start to do that? Because I think someone listening may be like, okay, this all sounds great. Yes, okay, I'm hearing you. I need to start with like looking from within. What does that mean? Like, how did that shift for you?
So I think the key thing is, for me, it helped with having the right people around me, because sometimes you got to borrow other people's love and and knowing of you before you can observe and get into the place of that knowing for yourself. So I had the right set of friends around me and family. I had a community that I connected into, that I borrowed the you would say, I borrowed all of their, not validation, but what's the word, Jane? I
Like
borrowed
belief, maybe.
their belief. Thank you. I borrowed their belief in me until I could get the belief in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that. I did go back to my meditation practices. That's the question that you often have to ask yourself when you're in these situations. What do I need right now? What do I
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a meditation practice from when I was in my early 20s. And I realized that meditation has been the thing that has kept me in places of calm. It's been the places where I've had major downloads of information or action that I should take, or sometimes I just fell asleep and it was places of rest. So I went back to that practice of meditation and get into the place of calm. And then I also did a lot of reaffirmations, affirming what wasn't true. Or, sorry, I should say, affirming what is true and letting go what
Mm-hmm.
wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And especially around the validation piece, I remember one of my affirmations is that I am capable, I am disciplined, I make clear and conscious decisions. Those are the things that help me to realize that you are capable, you are smart, you like all of these things that I was doubting, that maybe this person that's telling me this is right, that I'm not that great. But then I had to just
Mm-hmm.
my thought process. So I'd say going back and asking yourself what you need. I needed meditation practice and I needed a therapist. There's no doubt about it.
I think too, you brought up a good point on when, let's say, someone, you receive feedback. So you're receiving feedback from someone. That is strictly their point of view on your maybe behavior or performance or results based off what they're seeing. And I think too, when it comes to some of this, performance reviews and all of that, it's so results driven. And it's like interesting because none of it's like really tapped into like feelings. Like it's more so like the outputs, and it depends, I guess, too, on the type of role that you have. So it can be really easy to take that and then be like, internalize it and start believing it. Because the thing is, well, I think with any type of performance review and appraisal, they're always like start, stop, continue. So it's like when people are writing it, they have to find something that they like that you should stop doing. And then you start thinking, oh my God, am I doing that? Like, do I do that all the time? What's going on? And then you start questioning yourself and then start doubting yourself. So I love that you brought it back inward to saying, what do you need? Like, what is it that you really need?
And
And it's going to be different for everyone.
it will be. And I also wanted to acknowledge that this isn't a slight or saying that where I worked was horrible. No, I'm not saying that. There was areas for
Mm-hmm.
improvement. There's no doubt about
Mm-hmm.
it. I also want to take accountability in this and be very transparent that my reactions and my emotions was driven by me. I received information and how I responded is what made me spiral.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's important for us to really note that it's information and what are you going to do with the information that you receive? Because if you allow it to define you, or where you were going, Jane, like, am I that bad? No, remember, it's information. And how are you going to receive it? And I definitely have improved on how I receive information and what I do with feedback, because that is something that I really had to focus on, and saying that, remember who you are, Crystal. This is feedback. And what are you going to do with the information and feedback? So I take accountability, full accountability, because I couldn't have spiraled unless I let myself spiral. That's how I look at it.
And that's key, honestly. And, that's a really good point to bring up that, you're not pointing any fingers at your organization. And like, full well that you are the one that said yes to the work. You are the one that was choosing to work late. You were the one. And I see this in my friends, and I specifically ones that have kids because, they have certain obligations, like they'll work and then take a break for dinner, take a break to put their kids to bed, and then continue working. And when I'm hanging out with them, and these are like VPs, like these individuals have high roles, and I'm like, you understand you don't need to be doing that. And they say I'm always working, like, oh my God, I'm so tired, like I need, like, it's crazy. Like, I have my laptop in bed. Like, I'm barely spending time with my partner, like, all this stuff, right? And I'm like, you know that you're allowing this? Like,
Yes.
and it's like,
Yeah.
you, I, and I actually ask questions because I'm so curious, and I'm not gonna tell them what I believe, I'm not gonna enforce my belief on them. I just say, there is a better way. And then
Yeah.
I say, is it that they're giving you more work than is actually possible for you to complete in a day, in a working day? Like, I try to get to the bottom of like what's the real thing here. And in my head, I know, because I was this person where I was just taking on, taking on, taking on. I wanted to prove that I was the best. I wanted to be the best project manager. If there was a project that came in, I wanted to be the one that everyone's like, Jane should be on it. And I always was like this. So I was just continuously taking on more and more, to my own detriment, obviously, because you need to learn that setting your boundaries actually makes people respect you more. And it's like the challenging part, I think, some people have, especially when it comes to getting burnt out, is like they might have a boss. How many times my friends have said, like, well, my boss is working all hours. And I'm
So
like,
behavior.
yeah. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, so again, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you are choosing this. You are choosing this life for yourself right now. Like, if you don't want it, you need to set some boundaries. Like, so how did you,
Mm.
okay, so you end up taking 4 months. Talk us through going back. Like, you
Yeah.
did this self-discovery, and so obviously what we're trying to say here is, like, burnout is real. It can happen. It's happened to you. If anyone is feeling like waking up and, feeling really low, possibly depressed, unsure about what's going on, just know that they're burning the candle at 10 ends. Then maybe going to a doctor and talking with them and considering, even get the note. You can decide what you want to do with it, like you did, but it's like knowing that it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to take that time. And I mean, there's reasons why that is an option, right? There's reasons why
Right.
companies allow that. And
Loving
it's
this.
like, I'm not joking. One of my coworkers in my last contract she was forced to. She went to her doctor and she was forced. They were like, you have no option. And it's based in the UK. So they're like insanely strict on it. If the doctor writes a note, I think the doctor sends it to the company. Like, they're like, no, it's happening.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about, so you started to focus on the meditation. You started to do the things for you, getting that community support, getting that belief, rebuilding that belief in yourself, probably in a new way than what you were used to.
Yeah. Absolutely. A new way of understanding what the what wasn't true about myself, and creating new truths of what was really true, and writing those affirmations about myself on a daily basis of who I'm being and the type of person and how I'm navigating this world. Um, and I would say that during that time, I realized how much meditation has served me. So I actually launched my business during that time. It was amazing how, when you reframe and you realize that you have to put what's important on the table and not compromise, and set those boundaries. Like, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it. So I launched my business, but I went back into the workplace, and nothing changed in the workplace, Jane. It was the same type of workplace. It was the same type of feedback and interaction. It was the same type of culture. Nothing changed, but I changed. And once I changed and I realized how I'm going to set my boundaries and navigate and speak up for myself. Because in this time of action, I also lost my voice, how I was going to speak up for myself or pick my battles. Sometimes it's like, this is not worth it. I know what I'm dealing with here. And
Mhm.
I can see a bigger picture, and I actually could see where they actually could do with some time off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
You're like, you should go get a note.
and so once I regained and I regained who I really am and who I am, going back to the workplace was difficult, but I had the coping mechanisms to work through it. I had the tools, I should say, to get through it. I went right back to the same place, but I had the tools. And it was still like a daily battle of fighting. Like sometimes I went back into that, oh, I'm kind of dipping and then, okay, what do I need to come back? What do I need? So I had the tools to come back when I felt myself dipping. So I'm back. I'm doing extremely well. The work I'm doing is amazing. I've changed like places in the organization. It's a great organization to work for. And I'm doing very well. And, it's the same organization, same, what they will say, same day, different day, same X, Y, Z.
Hmm.
But it's how I deal with it. Even emails that I'm getting today, I'm like, don't stress about it. This is not your battle to fight. Now let's start your weekend.
That's just, oh my gosh, it's so great. And this is so inspiring because, it goes to show giving back to you for a hot minute, a couple months, however long anyone needs, even just a few weeks, like the power in that. And what I'm hearing too, which I love, is as you reconnected with yourself, you've found a love for meditation. And I truly, and this is just like a great example of the more you make time for the things that you love to do, like you are just fucking naturally going to feel better in your life. It gives me goosebumps saying it because it's like that's the key to freaking a happy life. Make time for the things you love. And that could for you be 5 minutes of meditation at any time during your day. And that can help calm your mind. And for me, it's like being out in nature. So, like, I know I need to get outside. That's like my form. And I think what's really cool with meditation is I also follow some guided meditations and stuff. I did listen to sleep meditations. Like there's all these things I listen to. But for me, getting out in nature helps me clear my mind. Feeling the sun or just feeling the fresh air if it's not sunny out. Like for me, meditation can take so many forms. And that's like
Oh,
meditation for me. And it can be anything. I think people get tied up. They think I can't meditate because I can't sit quietly. No, seriously, I can't either. Like if I could sit with your sound bowl, that would like, I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go. That's perfect. But yeah, I can't, me to sit in silence, like that's something I actually want to work on to like quiet my own mind and practice my focus and attention. But, it can take so many forms, but it's a beautiful thing that you found that. And then
yeah.
now you've not only did you find that, you found so much joy in it. You're helping other people do that. Like, think about that. Just a prime example of everything starts with a thought. Like, you were like, I love meditation. I'm going to go back to that. And then you're like, as you start to maybe write affirmations, it's like, I'm running meditation things. I am a meditation coach, like all these things. And then it's like, look at it. Look what you're doing now. It's like amazing.
It's evolved so much from a thought to like, okay, I'm doing this to um and just, okay, before I go there, I wanted to zone in on a point that meditation takes so much forms. Everyone thinks that, or society can be fed the images of someone sitting still with their, hands
Yeah.
up, but it can be running. When you're in a deep running, or like your strides, that's such a meditative flow. It could be running, it could be singing, it could be prayer, it could be sitting in silence, it could be listening to sound. Whatever is going to help you focus. And sometimes, I ran a sound session or a sound bath last night, and I said, let's just even take the word meditation out and say, and just look at this is a tool to help you focus. Simple as that. It's a way to help you focus. We have so many things that are distracting us. How are we
Mhm.
going to have time to focus? Because if when you're focused, brings more clarity, brings more ability for inspiration to come to you, brings better ability for you to make decisions. Like you are able to respond versus react. Like there's so much things that come with focus. And so again, if we just take the word meditation and say, I have a focus practice, doesn't that resonate differently? How do I help myself focus?
I love that.
Yeah. And so thanks for bringing up that there's many forms. I'm doing sound baths now, which is a great way for people to connect with sound. That's a great access point because sometimes a lot of silence is difficult, but sound,
Mhm.
you hear a resonating, beautiful sound and you just focus on the sound and the vibration of the sound. It can bring you into different frequencies. Maybe it's around sleep, maybe it's around creativity, maybe it's around regeneration. Different frequencies bring about different healing in you. So,
I actually found I like that you touched on the frequency because one, I love those sound bowls. Like they're insane. There's like a crystal shop down so close to my house. And one day I was in there and they're like, yeah, you can test these all out. They're all different like sounds and the frequencies. And I was
yeah.
like mind blown. It was like so energetic. What I actually started doing, I have like a sound healing playlist on Spotify. But one of the tracks, it's like 45 minutes long and it's a happiness frequency. And I play it every morning. And it used to be when I worked my contract job, I would play it like, so I, when I wake up, actually, interestingly enough, I listen to two morning affirmation type things. One is like, just this like good morning goddess amazing one. Another one is Hina's rallying cry.
Oh, Riley
Like
Clark.
her
Oh,
person, like I could quote that. Like I've been listening to it for years. And I started when I was doing this contract. I was like, I need to start listening like right away. I want to listen to something powerful. And so my alarm would go off, and I just immediately, I only have these two tracks in this one playlist. So I play one, and then it goes into Hannah's, and then that's like 15 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to kind of come alive, wake up. I'm half asleep, half listening to it. But I listened to that. And then I found the happiness frequency. And so I would put that on because I'd start work so early in the morning at like 5:30. You're very vulnerable at that time. Like my brain, I'm coming into a workplace that's 10:30 a.m. in the UK. They're already ready to go. And I would play the happiness frequency just through my speaker, and I'd start my morning listening to it. And it's just like the frequency's so good. And it's like, yeah, just background like noise, but it would put me into just knowing it's a happiness frequency, to be honest. I'm
that's
like,
enough.
okay. Yeah, like placebo effect. Like who knows?
Yeah,
It could be no frequency for
whatever.
all I know. It's just called
Yeah.
happiness frequency on Spotify. But no,
But it goes
I love
to the
it.
power of the mind and
Mhm.
how there's the thoughts and then what you feel about it result ends up in your results, right? So if you're feeling the happiness, then it's going to result in like just great things for you. And so I love that you connected with frequencies and sounds. It is something that I am getting more insight on and learning more and more every day. Um, but there's many ways. For me, I offer sound. I also offer guided meditations. I do corporate things, but we can talk about that later. But the key thing is that just find what works for you. Find what works for you. And for me, like my routine is I get up, I pray, I meditate, I go into coaching calls, and then I start my day, meaning I'm coached in the morning, and then
Yeah.
I start the day. And, you know, just knowing that, remember everyone, how you start your day is how you're going to end your day. So
Yes.
you starting with your affirmations, your goddess affirmations, and your henna rally cry, and your happiness frequency throughout the day. Like, what else? What would you expect would happen, but only great things?
Yeah.
That like there's no other option but great things to be happening in your life every,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Even like it's interesting, my car broke down the other day, left me on the side of the highway, and in all of that, I remember, like, I'm like, I'm so grateful. The CAA driver is so loving and caring, meaning that he protected me and
God, you had that.
out of the car on the highway. And I could have been mad because my car left me on the side of the highway, but I'm so grateful for it. And then the car cost me a good chunk of change to fix, but I am so grateful that I could pay for it. And, I could have probably had a great vacation, but I am grateful that I can pay for it at this point. And so it's just all how you look and how you reframe things.
Oh, that's such a good example. And I had something too this past week. So I had a master class on Monday that I have been promoting for a few weeks and had like, a ton of women signed up. And 15 minutes before I was going live, the power in all of like half of Toronto went out. So it was like 12:45 on Tuesday. Yeah. It was
Mhm.
12:45. I was watering my plant. And then and it's funny, I was like in my white suit, like, well, let's be real, half of my white suit, who really wears like, it's like business
I,
on the top, biker shorts on the bottom, let's be real. But I was in my suit and I was watering my plant. My plant's big and I was like moving it around. And I'm like, literally, it's funny. In my head, I was like, Jane, why are you doing this right now? But the lights went out and my kitchen, thankfully, is like the brightest place in the day, but I mean, it's not a massive window. The lights go out, and I'm like, that's interesting. And then from Hannah, that's interesting. I always say that. And then I look at the clock on the stove, it's out, and I'm like, and then I walk around to my computer and I look immediately at the Wi-Fi and it's not showing. And I'm like, okay. And I literally, my first thought was, I still have 15 minutes. So like I didn't freak or anything. I was like, I still have 15 minutes. And then I have 10 minutes. And it's like 12:52. It's starting at 1. I'm sitting at my desk and I was like, okay, well, my phone has 60% battery, so it should get me through. I have thankfully all my bars, like a 5G connection,
yeah.
connect to my computer. And I just sat at my desk and I was like, it's all going to work out because it always does. And I'm like, so my phone will work and or the internet will pop back on and it's all fine. And it's like, again, it's all in how you see it. Like how me 4 years ago would have freaked the fuck out. Like I would have been like, I need to cancel. I got to email everyone. Like, what am I going to do? Like I would have freaked out. But just like you, it's like, and then because the power went out, I actually went in the afternoon and worked from this like lovely one hotel. They have this beautiful restaurant
You
cafe.
didn't get that, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny because I was supposed to have a meeting, it got canceled. And then I ended up going to one hotel, which I've been saying I want to go to on a regular basis. So then I went, their power was on. I ate a delicious lunch and I like it was just, it always works out. It's
Yeah.
just it's so interesting. Okay, I digress. We're going off topic here, but so before we wrap up here, I'd like you to just share like if someone might think they're burnt out. Okay, one, how in your mind, like what made you really kind of like go to the doctor? And I mean, because I think what happens is when you spend years and years and years and years and years doing this shit and working so hard, and I think you brought up a good point about I know for myself, it's like the energy you have in your early 20s and what you value in your early 20s is drastically different from your late 30s. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like if you and the thing I know with my friends, so they've always been like this. And it's like, well, you don't always have to be like this. You can change that. But what are maybe some signs that you think are common with burnout?
Okay. Common with burnout, okay, it goes on a scale, but if you start to feel a lot of frustration, agitation, anxiety, loss of sleep, like start paying attention. Um, if you start to go into places where you're sort of like so it's almost like if you think about we have our automatic nervous system, right? And there's a theory called the polyvagal theory. And as you move up the ladder, you're in safer places, right? So just think of a ladder. On the lower part of the ladder is when you're not in a good place. In the middle part is where you can either go back into safe places or go into even not worse places. So if you're in the place of the middle of the ladder where you're feeling anxiety, frustration, uh, sometimes you're frantic, lots of worry, lots of sleep. Really think about what's happening. What is causing this? This is always stress induced most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so really pay attention to yourself at that point. Think about if you are trying to prove yourself a lot. Truly be honest with yourself. Are you trying to prove yourself? Are you trying to like work these exorbitant hours? What are you trying to do? Okay. Are you trying to do good work or are you trying to prove yourself? Okay. Really be honest with yourself. Okay. Now, if you're getting to the places where you, you're still mobilized, but if you've gotten to the lower part of the ladder, are you in automatic mode? Are you just saying yes to everything and not even thinking about it? Do you have a sense of numbness that's happening within you? Do you feel like, I don't even know how I'm going to change this? I just feel hopeless around this situation. Really think about it. If these are the questions and the thoughts that you're having, whether it's burnout or something else, just really
Mm-hmm.
think about and just try and intercept the thought and dissect where this thought is coming from. And if you are having these thoughts around hopelessness, feeling numb, feeling exhausted, feeling overwhelmed, loss of sleep, I can't recommend how much you need to just speak to someone that you trust. It doesn't have to be your doctor
Mm-hmm.
first, but speak to someone that you trust and let them know how you're feeling. And most of the time, they will have the most neutral yet really seeing the big picture view than you can see. Because sometimes you're in the mess and you
Yes, yes.
see, but they can see above the clouds and you're just below the clouds and they can see above.
No, that's great advice. I think as well, one thing that came to mind, which I've seen with people that have gone through like multiple people taking these, had to take these, is it manifested physical pain in the body, like tension, like excessive tension. Like I'm talking a frozen shoulder. Like this is not a woman that's like lifting, like frozen shoulder
Yeah.
and it's like, and my best friend had high stress and anxiety through, and it manifested numb physical numbness in her body, like, so if you're feeling any physical symptoms that are not normal, like are not things that you typically have felt, like don't ignore it,
Yeah.
because the more you ignore it, the worse it gets. And then it gets to the point where you have a frozen shoulder and you can't literally move your shoulder, or you can't move your arm without excruciating pain. And it's like the more you ignore that, the more detrimental it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that I used to have a pain underneath my rib cage. Yeah. And when I look back in retrospect, I think it was just in addition to feeling stress, just the stress that was building up, I wasn't even moving a lot. So there was
Mm-hmm.
that was building up a lot of gas, non-movement, not eating properly. Like everything was just building up, and I would have a ton of pain underneath my rib cage. And it was mostly because I wasn't moving in gas.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
there's so much things that we need to pay attention to. Um, and we need to take care of ourselves because that was, one of the major reasons why I did, actually the number one reason why I did this is because I had brought a little girl in this world and I needed to be a good mom. And it would be
Mm-hmm.
so unfair to her if I decided not to take care of myself and be there for her. It should be because I wanted to do it, but truly, if I'm honest with the audience, it's because she really pushed me. I needed to be here for her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you were, which is amazing. Like such an inspiration. And normalizing this for our listeners right now is so key. And without
And
a
Jane,
doubt, go
sorry,
ahead.
Jane, I just wanted to share. There's a stat that one of my friends shared with me that a lot of women go through this burnout situation between ages 35 and 45. It is so prevalent, but not a lot of people talk about it. It is
Mm-hmm.
prevalent because there's so much things that are happening in this stage in life. So don't ignore it. There is
I
blessing
think,
in burnout for me, and I want you not even to have to get here, but if you do, find the blessings for yourself and work your way through it.
yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, Crystal. Honestly, people might have to go back and listen to this again, take notes. There's so much juicy good things in here. So share what you got going on right now. This is going to be going live early August. So share what's going on and where do you show up? I'll have all of your links in the show notes, but where do you show up most? How can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So I show up on IG all the time at Dare to Flow with Me. That's DARE, Dare to Flow with Me. And I am having a beautiful in-person event on August 24th. That's a Saturday in the afternoon at a wellness studio called The Village, VILLIJ. And at this event is called Being Her. And it's about identifying the thoughts, feelings, and actions that move you from wanting to be her to actually being her. And so the key thing is that oftentimes we think we need to have the thing, whether it's the job or the money or the partner, before we say we're going to be this type of person. And you don't need those things to step into who you are destined to be. Those are just things. You can be her today. So just going through a beautiful afternoon of visualization, harmonizing with sound, and, in discussion and group activities of how we can connect with the person that we know we want to be and just step into her today.
Oh, that is going to be transformative for people because I know the power of this type of work. I am constantly going back to the things that we learned, to the tools that we have to be who I want to be now and get into the spirit of her. And I just love this. So, Crystal, this has been amazing. This has been the best, 45 minutes. I just love it. So, thank you so much for being on here today.
Of course. So thank you, Jade, for having me. And I look forward to meeting maybe some folks through this podcast.
Yeah, show up for her event. So we'll have all the links in the show notes. Thank you again.